And now for our segment Connections. We're about to make a connection between Queen Charlotte of England with a project by someone we first met and knew as an outstanding actress in film and TV until she moved over to writing and producing, with work that includes the hit film Why Do Fools Fall in Love and the controversial and compelling miniseries Sally Hemings, An American Scandal. Please welcome award-winning writer-producer Tina Andrews. Hello, Tina.
How are you,
Thank you so
Ann?
much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we're going to get right into it. This is a compelling project. This project that you're now working on has actually been picked up by Amazon for its streaming platform, and it's about Queen Charlotte Sophia, and not just the fact that she was the wife of King George, and some people might say the mad King George,
yes.
but also the fact that she had African heritage.
It goes back to my father's library. I inherited his library, and he had all of the J.A. Rogers biographies and historical books, and there was a picture in one of them it was black and white, and it showed a picture of Charlotte Sophia, and it said, Britain's first black queen.
Wow.
And I said, oh,
goodness, yes,
it was a black
taken
queen.
aback.
And so I wanted to start researching her. I wanted to know more about her, and there was very little information at that point.
Right.
And so, of course, years later, you know, I have a few projects under my belt, and I decided to revisit her story and found out that the genealogist and historian who was working with me on Sally Hemings was the person who discovered her genealogy going back to Madrigana bin Bekkar,
My goodness.
who was a Moor.
Yes.
And so he began to send me information, and a story emerged. Little did I know it was going to take me 12 years before I felt that I had something all in one place to give to an audience.
Now, I understand that that PBS Frontline actually had a series called Famous Families. Did you actually refer to that? How did you do your research?
All right,
and did you actually travel to England?
It was Mario de Valdez who came out with a lot of the initial information. It was his information that was used, in fact, in that PBS piece. I go to England almost every April for the last 12 years.
Wow.
April is not only my birth month, but also I go to London because the book festival the London Book Festival is there. And I started to ask people, particularly at the British Museum and at the British Library, and people would pull volumes of things. I have a picture of a pair of her shoes. She had a quite small foot, size 5 foot.
Yes.
She was a compelling character to me. I discovered she was the darkest, even though she's very light-skinned. You wouldn't know that she was of African descent, but she was the darkest in her family. So everyone in her family, there were 8 children, looked white, and she was a little beige.
Yes.
So her mother kept her under white makeup, that Elizabethan makeup of the time.
I see.
So can you imagine that when she is negotiated and arranged into the marriage to King George III,
right,
he doesn't find out she's black until wedding night.
Oh my goodness.
Because she arrived in England on her wedding day, basically.
How much of this is documented, and how did you go about exposing it, uncovering what's been written about this?
There are, gosh, I probably have every book ever written about her, including her autobiography, which was written in 1818. Now, she doesn't give us all of the information. You have to extrapolate and put a bit here and a bit there. There's a lot of history on her in Germany. She's from Mecklenburg. All of the Georges were originally German.
Right.
And so all of the Georges, George I, George II, and our Mad King George III, all had German consorts as their wives. And so they combed all over Germany looking for the appropriate princess to arrange into a marriage with King George. And she was the one who was the most intelligent, and she had the proper comportment, but she was hiding that bit of information under the white paint.
How important is this story to the black diaspora, if you wish?
Well, I think it's very important. Listen, I do those stories that travel on that road less traveled.
Right.
I want to know who we are and where we are and what we have done worldwide. You know, I think of myself as a global citizen. And I feel that most black people do not know who quite a few other celebrated people rather,
yes.
that are in fact black. Dumas,
right,
Pushkin,
yes.
Aesop, you know, we don't necessarily, Cleopatra even, you know, we don't necessarily know. So I felt that it was more important that this story be told as a novel than me trying to be a biographer. I don't know that I do that well. I mean, I was playing to my strengths, and it's a 60-year story. And as I started to put it together, I said, you know, I'm considered the person that connects dots as a dramatist, and that's why it became a novel versus me trying to do it as a biography.
And you also put it on stage, is that right? You've directed and
did.
produced this
I
project.
did.
Tell me a bit about that.
It's not the entire 60-year story. Yes. I had to cut into the life in order to put it on stage for 2 hours, so I only do the first third of her life while she was in Germany, dealing with the fact that she was the darkest member of her family, being made to feel bad about that,
right.
Having the strong, tough, wonderful, loving older brother who helped her to accept herself. And the play ends when she meets George. So we spend most of the 2 hours in Germany, and sometimes I'll go back and forth, you know, where George was in love with someone else. He was in love with, this story is very much Prince Charles, Camilla, and Diana.
Oh, how interesting to bring
where
it to
he was in love with love with
Right.
someone else and couldn't marry her because she wasn't royal enough, and then the woman that he's married to, he's forced to marry, makes him very sad in terms of having a relationship that he didn't care as much about.
And you mentioned it took like 12 years to produce this project. I mean, was there some backlash, and has there been backlash to exposing the fact that, oh my goodness, lo and behold, the royal family has black blood in it?
Well, you know, Queen Elizabeth II, the current queen, has spoken about her African blood. She spoke about it shortly after her
coronation.
Her coronation.
Yes.
And then I couldn't find where she actually spoke out about it, and I had gone to Buckingham so many times to try to see if I could find that. Yeah. Everyone talks about it, but no one can find the information. So she is aware.
Are there any parallels between what was happening then and what's happening now in politics?
I would say not necessarily in politics. Socially, and this is sort of funny, King George was mad, and certainly one of the candidates that I feel this running is mad. But she did everything that she could do to help the cessation of slavery in England.
Right.
And so I would say that she would be one of those heroes of the civil rights movement person. And that's how I would put that together, you know, politically.
Well, Tina, what's next on the horizon for you? What other projects do you have in the works?
I am going to do 2 plays that I'm writing and directing. I have another book. I have another limited series that I'm working on that I'll be able to discuss when I come back to see you. So there are 4 projects altogether.
Tina, thank you so much for your time and such an interesting perspective. We look forward to you coming back and speaking about your future projects and about your artwork.
Oh, my artwork, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When we return, a final word.